So welcome to today's PJ Party Edition. Yes, we are live. Yeah. So I'm so excited today because I've got one of my dearest friends, Lisa Andrews, here on the call with me, and we are both zooming in from home. Lisa was actually so kind, and she messaged me this morning, like, am I coming to the studio, to the Basic Bananas headquarters, or are we zooming in? And because Lisa lives in the city, and I thought it might be more efficient for both of us to zoom in, but it was very kind of you. And then I turn on Zoom tonight, and Lisa is wearing her pajama, well, digging out pajama clothes, so I quickly had to go and get a little bit of my face mask, which I don't really use very often. So
does anyone actually wear these to bed?
I don't, do you?
No.
I
mean, yes, of course this is what I wear to bed.
You look very good.
I've got my leg warmers on.
This is how, yeah, fantastic. I just love it. We're getting a whole bunch of comments here. You excited, super excited, loving the outfits. Cool. All right, we're gonna get right into it. For you all on the session today, if you can please use the Q&A instead of the chat, that would be super awesome, because then I only need to look in one place, because otherwise I need to look in different places. And so what we'll do right now is I'll tell you a little bit more about Lisa actually, and she can tell us a little bit more about her journey. And then I'm just super happy to have Lisa here, because she's probably one of the smartest women I know. And I know a lot of smart women. She's right in the top 5% of smartness, and also just involved in so many amazing projects. Every time we hang out, I walk away with just this even bigger vision and new ideas, and we've collaborated on different projects, and so I'm really excited to have her here. So what we'll do is I'll have a few questions for Lisa to discuss, and for me this session tonight is as exciting as it is hopefully for you, because I'm really curious about what we're going to discuss. And then also, if you want to ask any questions for Lisa, you're welcome to drop them into the Q&A. And we definitely have a little bit of time to answer any other questions. So I've already told you about Lisa. She's amazing. Lisa runs a few companies and also is the co-CEO of Singularity University, and just is involved in a lot of startups and investing in really good startup companies that are changing the world. So Lisa, without further ado, I'm speechless, because you're just amazing and I love having you here. Do you want to share a little bit more, anything that I forgot?
I think that'll come out as we go along. I guess I'm a CFO by trade, but I don't usually lead with, hey, I've got accounting training, because I've been in marketing as well, and now technology is the future. So with Singularity University, I totally love, because it's all the latest technologies that are going to impact us in the next 10 years and all of our lives.
Yeah, and always whenever I come and hang out with you guys at Singularity University, when we do a session, or even on the judging panel, I'm always completely blown away by the talent that you guys attract, of people that are running super impactful businesses. So really grateful for the work that you do there. Now, the first thing I wanted to quickly talk to you about is you often talk a little bit about an abundant mindset. And of course, today we have a lot of business owners on the call, because normally that's who comes to Basic Bananas. What is an abundance mindset, and why is it so important?
Yeah, it's even more important and relevant now with everything we're experiencing as a pandemic. And the word abundance gets thrown around a lot, and the opposite is scarcity. So if you think scarcity versus abundance, we like to talk about how the brain has evolved over thousands of years. And the way that we have evolved is around scarcity. It's, where's my next meal coming from? Am I going to get eaten by a tiger? How do I stay alive? And it's only been recent times that we've had a lot more abundance, where we've got food, we've got seasonal food all year round now. And so if you actually think about it that way, we've got more food abundance than kings and queens had 200 years ago. And as we've evolved, and you think about scarcity, it's kind of, we went back to a scarcity mindset. We had January bushfires, we had February floods, and then March was the great toilet paper panic, where everyone started being scarcity again of, I'm going to run out of supplies. And so abundance to me in a mindset is kind of like we we're in a state where you could think 6 months out. Where's my next holiday? And am I going to make any career move changes? What are we going to do in business and planning and strategy? And we took that for granted. And so an abundance mindset and the comfort that we've actually had over the last so many years, or even 6 months ago, we had an abundance mindset in business. And now we've gone back to that scarcity mindset, and we've had to move and adapt to change really quickly.
Yeah, and you can definitely see with the, the businesses that are coming back to abundance, they are often the ones that are finding the solutions, whereas the businesses that we work with and that you see also that are a little bit more stuck in scarcity are often the ones that can't move past what's going on, and rather than working on the business and figuring out how to go to the next level, no matter what's happening in the world, are obviously, it makes a huge difference in terms of how you think.
Yeah, so I'm going to be super nerdy and talk about it in terms of abundance versus scarcity, but it's also linear versus exponential. Yeah. So if you think linear and the mathematical formula, everyone talks about exponential. And so we talk about exponential technologies, and SingularityU, it's about nanotechnology, bionics, robotics, AI, VR, AR, network sensors, and they're all exponential technologies. And the theory around that is a mathematical formula. So 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 is an exponential step. Yeah. And everyone saw it with the curve of COVID. It was, the cases were doubling every day. And I thought, we're never going to have to explain what exponential means anymore, because everyone understands the doubling effect. And if you think about linear steps, so 30 linear steps will get you 30 meters across the room, and 30 exponential steps is a guess at the moment, unless you've got a calculator. But if you were to try and guess 30 exponential steps, the different mindset that's required for that is quite significant, because it would actually get you 26 times around the earth.
Yes, I remember.
30 exponential steps.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that thinking, because the same applies also when you look at, obviously a lot of the work that we do here is on marketing and branding, and you can look at some strategies that are exponential. So some marketing that you use that is exponential in terms of how far it can get you, and then there is stuff that you can do that is more linear. And I find that very interesting, actually, to see how this thinking, the abundant thinking, applies to not just technologies or the mindset, but also in how you grow your company, and really leveraging the stuff right now that is more exponential.
Well, we did that when I shared on my Facebook as well as your Facebook. So you went Facebook Live, and then by me sharing it, it's 2 and then 4, and that actual impact of that is
that's so true.
All the mathematical formula.
Yeah, and hopefully everyone who is here right now will also share it on their Facebook and Instagram, and then we'll be even more exponential in hopefully helping more people. Quickly talking about technologies, what are some of the technologies that you are seeing that you believe are really going to impact our lives and businesses?
Definitely, and there are so many. So I thought I'd do a little show and tell as well, because a lot of people, when you talk about new technologies, you don't realize the technologies that we actually already have here today. And so and a lot of the technologies, we actually like to predict the technologies that are going to impact us all in the next 10 to 20 years. And so we use that by the mathematical formula of exponential. So anything that's based on computational capacity, so anything that's computer chip enabled, is going to be able to have an exponential doubling effect. And if you have a look at, it's Moore's law, so computational capacity doubles every 2 years and the price performance halves. And so what we're able to do is look at all these different technologies and computers. Even working from home at the moment, I was surprised how many people didn't have computers at home. But the impact of the doubling effect and the price performance halving means that a lot more people are going to have access to computers in the future. And so it's all around those kind of technologies. And so some of my favorites, networks and sensors, because there's less than 50% of the current global population on the internet. And so my little show and tell, so networks and sensors, I've got an Aura ring. I don't know if you've seen the Aura ring.
Yeah. Most of my friends actually have one of these. I haven't gotten one.
Yeah, I totally love it. So at the moment, I'm like tracking my sleep, and it's even like small shifts. So if I can, and throughout our conversation now, I'd like to start with now, and then kind of go couple of years ahead at a time to go what the world's going to look like in 10 years. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Can I do that?
Yeah.
What I think the world's going to look like. And so I'm measuring my sleep at the moment, and I'm measuring my heart rate, and it gives me a score on a little dashboard about my readiness for the day. And so I'm working from home, I'm living at home, I'm having a nice little isolation party here by myself. And so the only thing keeping me accountable at the moment is some of my little dashboards, because, you know, I'm a stats girl. So I'm like, I worked out, the app actually gave me the reading that my average bedtime's about 11 o'clock and my wake up time 6 a.m. I'm like, yeah, that's great. 4 weeks ago, my average bedtime was 1 o'clock in the morning and my wake up was 7:30. And I was like, that's probably not so good. So my little app's keeping me accountable. That when I talk about networks and sensors, that's actually 250 sensors and capturing 250 measurements per minute. And my Apple Watch is 15. And so it's 10 times more powerful than the Apple Watch. But it's kind of those, it's the accountability to make me be a little bit better and show up and not have a readiness score for the day of 60, because it tells me today's not going to be a day that you're going to achieve anything, versus today I'm actually 92. I'm excellent today.
Quickly on that point, and then I'd love to hear more show and tell. On that point, I have this discussion all the time with people that have the ring, and you know, I think one reason that I haven't gotten one yet is because I kind of don't want the ring to tell me how little I'm sleeping, or you know, because I feel like if I wake up and I see, okay, I didn't sleep enough, then I'm gonna think that, okay, the ring is telling me I'm not gonna perform very highly. But if it's almost like just ignoring it, you know, it's like, no, it's okay, I'm fine, and then I'll perform really well. So do you feel like it's impacting you when the ring tells you, hey, you haven't slept enough? Then you suddenly have this mindset where you go, I'm not gonna perform, or you think it's, because that's why I haven't gotten it, because I already know what the ring is gonna tell me. Don't sleep enough.
Well then, I don't know, wouldn't you be like, haha, I did anyway?
No,
I can't, and I'm going to.
Fine. I just, you know, I just tell my mind it's fine. I slept enough. But the ring would tell me something else, obviously.
Yeah, and so this is a perfect segue into my favorite thing in the whole world, and that is a future of perfect knowledge. And so if you think about it, with all of the data and the networks and sensors that we're going to see in the next 10 years, so we've currently got 50 billion devices on the planet and 1 trillion sensors. And in the next 10 years, we're going to have 500 billion devices and 100 trillion sensors. And so a future of perfect knowledge, and the ability to know anything, anywhere, anytime. And if you think about that, at the moment, we've got this ability and this doubling effect where we're sharing things on Facebook and whatnot. And we've actually had this linear mindset that technology's been starting to happen faster and faster, and we can know more things. And just because we can doesn't mean that we want to sometimes.
Yeah.
But in the next 10 years, like, imagine all of those networks and sensors and the data that we're going to capture on everything. And so currently at the moment, this is why I thought I'd have a little show and tell, because I've got the Oura Ring. I've got a Colgate toothbrush that tells me if I've missed a spot. It actually it's electric toothbrush, and it gamifies it for kids as well. But even when the battery dies, it still does offline mode, and it tells me the time that I brush my teeth every day. And, you know, 97% accuracy, because I might have been in a rush, and all of these other things that we're actually capturing at the moment that it's going to be more and more of. It's kind of a bit of a novelty now, but I think in the future we're going to be able to know everything.
Yeah. And what do you think is the impact? So I agree. I can see, you know, more and more we're tracking everything, and, you know, what we eat and what we don't eat, and sleep and toothbrushing even. What do you think is the impact of all of that? Or what do people that are joining us here today, who are mostly business owners, what do they need to know about that? What's the impact of all of that on the businesses for the future?
Perfect question. And this is where my CFO training comes in. And this is why I'm a little obsessed with it, because as a CFO in a business, you're always looking at strategy and your business model. And so where's your revenue coming from and how are you going to grow? And any type of CFO consulting that I do, I always start with, where are you at now? Where do you want to be? And then it's just a gap analysis or a massive action plan. And so when I first went to Singularity University, I walked in and there was a sign that said, how will you positively impact 1 billion people in the next 10 years? And I was kind of like, and that's why I always start with mindset, because sometimes we don't realize the mindset that's required to be able to do these things. And because I relay that to business, and I went, wow, like I think Tony Robbins says, all business is limited by the psychology and the skill of the owner.
Yeah.
Because any person at the moment, there's so many tools and resources available that anyone can impact 1 billion people. Anyone can have the biggest impact on the world with the right strategy. And so for me, strategy and all of this information and this data and tools and technology is, how do we actually know the road ahead of all these things that are coming, because they are going to impact every business, every individual, every person's lives in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And only because the pace of change is so quick.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's technology that already businesses are totally embracing. Even, a lot of the automation, sometimes we don't even know that we're already using bots. For a lot of people on the session today, you're already using bots by using some of the Facebook advertising platforms, for example, or the ManyChat platforms where you already use bots. And so I guess it's just about not being scared of that stuff, right? It's about just staying on top of it. And that's why we're talking today about this topic, because it is so important. What sort of resources do you recommend people that are super geeky on these things, like obviously we are? What do you tell people? Where should they read? Obviously the Singularity University stuff is quite amazing. Is there anything else?
Yeah, Peter Diamandis's book, The Future is Faster Than You Think, is really good. Mm-hmm. And I think that there'll be a few resources I'll recommend as we go. If you think about it, and what I really like to do is completely blow people's minds and then put it into action. So if we can kind of zoom out and go, here's some of the crazy things and crazy ideas, and then go into action planning. If you take yourself out of the near and now and get into an abundance mindset to dream, and if you start thinking 10, 20-year goals, it's a completely different frame of mind that you need to be in. If you go back 20 years, we didn't have social media. And then now we're using social media. It exists. We know it exists. And then if you go in the future 20 years, we're going to have this future of perfect knowledge. And we're going to get there along the way, and we're going to be tactical and use whatever strategy we have at hand along the way. But if you can kind of keep in mind that there are going to be things coming that we don't know are coming, we don't know they exist yet, we get a little bit comfortable going, oh, we've had, Google only started being really popular in the mid 2000s. Mm. And so, we didn't have that then. There's going to be more tools and resources. So as a business, you kind of need to be agile and tune in to these sources of information to kind of always know that road ahead, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. And I can see, how some businesses are just embracing that change. And again, it comes back to that abundance where you just embrace it and you're like, okay, let's try. And now today you hear Lisa talk about different technologies, and some of them you might go, I'm going to try this, or it might sparkle a little idea of what you can do in your business also. One thing I'd love to talk to you about is, this is something that you and I always connect on, and we're both probably in business for that reason, the reason and that mission, and that is that we both want to leverage entrepreneurship to make an impact. And we've had the honor to work together on various projects. Last year we were in New York at the United Nations for a summit where we got to look at how we can use entrepreneurship to make an impact. And so I'd love, and you're so involved in this space, and I'd love to know from you and hear from you a little bit more about how can business owners make more of an impact? How can we use entrepreneurship more to solve some of the world's grandest challenges?
I'll start with a question around what's happening in 2020. And do you think that people are going to just sit back and not speak up when they feel that something wrong's going on? And I feel like with Black Lives Matter and some of the other things that have been happening this year, and whilst it's not always the best way or approach, and you might not always agree with the strategies that are taken, I think as humans, we've started saying, I'm not going to stand for something I don't believe in. And if I hear about something that's wrong in the world, I'm going to stand up for it. And we're seeing it more and more now where people are speaking with their wallets. And so there's so many different avenues that's happening. I know last year it was the Adidas put out their Futurecraft Loop shoe. They said originally they're going to do 11 million pairs of shoes, make 11 million pairs of shoes from the great ocean plastic. And then they came out, and one of the dirtiest industries is fashion because of the amount of stuff that goes into landfill every day. And they said, okay, well, we're going to make a recyclable shoe. And one of the challenges with recycling a shoe is that it's got laces and it's got different parts and materials. So the human intervention or human labor was a lot to actually recycle a shoe. And so they are now doing it. It's all one material. They're able to make a shoe, and then they can break it. They 3D print it in this material, and then you can send that shoe back and break it down, and they 3D print it into another shoe. And so I think this is, and when we talk about making an impact, when you're in business, you always know you want to be aligned with your values. And we talk about this all the time. And I know that you do so much work with businesses and purpose and their mission and why they exist and their values and what they stand for. It's not going to be accepted that you don't have good values in the future, because everyone's at home, everyone can research, everyone can see what's actually happening. And when they're in that state, if it's a choice to buy your product or service versus someone else's, and you're doing something better, or you're doing something good in the world, or you care and you stand for making a difference, then you're going to be a lot more successful.
Yeah, I love that. And it's almost like you say, it's almost expected now of businesses to be good. And it's so interesting. I just had this conversation on the weekend in the snow. We were talking actually about a fashion label. I forgot the name of it. And then one of the women that I was with, she said, I don't ever buy from this label. And I said, why? And she said, because they wouldn't make available their supply chain. So they wouldn't publicize where the stuff comes from, because obviously they don't feel comfortable to share the supply chain and where it's coming from, and if people are getting paid enough to produce this label. So she said, I don't want to ever buy from a brand that is not sharing openly where and how these things are being made. So this is very interesting that you share this.
It's one of the huge mega trends for this year is trust and transparency. And usually I get really geeky and I start singing because I'm a really bad singer and it's bad, but this is my one basic principle for anything I buy now. This is really bad. Where did it come from? Where did it go? Where did it come from? Cotton Eye Joe. Yes, I did that. I just did that.
On camera, it's recorded. It's going to go onto YouTube, and it's also live on Facebook. And I love you so much for doing that.
Yep. You're welcome. I actually should learn how to sing that properly. I should have some singing lessons around that song, because
that line, yeah.
Yep. Where did it come from and where did it go?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. If you look around, take a breath, look around your house and your room.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah. And I don't, which is sad, right? And we should ask that question as a consumer. And so for businesses on the call right now, if you can, and obviously, hopefully you do have a clean supply chain and you are ethical in everything you do. So it's also important to share that knowledge. And
you know what? It's very hard to at the moment. There would be very, very few businesses that could do it at the moment. And there was one, I watched a documentary just recently, and it was about carpet tiles.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there was a huge trend in the 90s for carpet tiles.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's really big in America, and they made tons of carpet tiles.
Yeah.
And one of their selling points was that you could put it in a compost for 2 years and it wouldn't change shape.
Okay, yeah, that's not very good.
Yeah, but they thought that was a great selling point. And they were actually one of the first companies to go corporate social responsibility and start making a difference in the world. And this was in the 80s, and they had a plan that by 2020 that they'd be carbon neutral, carbon zero. I think they just wanted to have a neutral impact. So anything that they made, that then they were neutral. And that was a 40-year plan. And so when we're having these conversations, and that's why I share with everyone, it's absolutely not possible just to straight away in business do it. And I understand that, and I understand the costs involved, but starting to think that way because in the next 5 years, we will be able to know, or there will be businesses, or there'll be people that are able to shift and pivot quickly that will make the most of that, and they'll have that as part of their message.
Yeah. So the people on the session today listening or listening to this later on, it's so important to obviously to first of all make sure that the supply chain is clean, and then also share that on your marketing pieces. What else can a business do? I get this question all the time, because we obviously love helping businesses be more impactful. And the question often is, I want to be good. I run a small business, and maybe I'm a solo entrepreneur. I have a small company and I want to be good, but where should I start? What's one thing I can do? What do you tell people?
I love the impact formula that actually there's two things. I'm going to start with, you should never should on yourself. My business coach told me that one time, because shoulding's not, you shouldn't should on yourself.
Yeah,
because you should do a lot of stuff. But you don't sometimes, and that's okay, because it's your habits, and it's the small things that you do every day that make a difference. Yeah. And so impact for me is, how do you impact yourself and your immediate family? And then how do you impact your local community? Actually, no, sorry, I missed a step. Yourself and your immediate family, your extended friends and family, your local community, your country, and the world.
Yeah.
And local community, or community now, means lots of different things, because it's easier to have a digital community now. But when you're, we're banning the word but. No,
I like that. Yeah, because that's sort of a negator of the thing that he said before. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it sort of negates, is that the word?
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that he said before.
Yeah. So
yeah.
And it's putting it into your strategy as well. So like this company they had a 40-year plan to go to carbon neutral. And that's okay, because it was a massive company and they were doing a massive amounts of things. So even talking about that, you want to understand and you want to know where it comes from, and you're starting a new product line, or start small and transition. And I think that's why, like, the technologies and the stuff that's coming in the next 5 to 10 years is, just be aware that there are going to be a lot more companies that are putting it as part of their branding and their messaging, and it's profit with purpose. And sometimes everyone thinks it's got to be profit or purpose. And I've noticed, like, in the last few years, researching a lot more, even philanthropic funds and the funds out there that want to invest in purpose, they haven't seen that it actually is the same thing now. And so, it's putting a transition plan in place, understanding it's coming. And then I love the sustainable development goals as well. And we talk about the global grand challenges, and the world's always going to have problems. And so we've split them into resource needs, societal needs, and it's water, space, environment, and there's 12 of them. And I always think, and this is why I love business as well, because we've got the ability to pivot and move quickly. If you think of the Earth as a spaceship, and we're traveling through the universe on this spaceship, and we have all the resources that we need on board, we just need to work together. And so I love the global grand challenges, because my CFO thing, it's like, we're always going to have problems. So that's our North Star, is working on the world's biggest problems, because the world's biggest problems are the world's biggest business opportunities. And then the sustainable development goals are like milestones. It's like, here's your goals, here's the sub goals, and how you can contribute to some of the world's biggest problems. And then that is aligning so that we can get everyone on the planet working towards the same thing of what we all agree is important for society in the next 10 years.
Yeah, I love that. And I always go back to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that you mentioned. So anyone listening right now, you can just Google United Nations SDG or Sustainable Development Goals. And, sometimes I know that you feel the same way, because we had this moment on Necker Island where you burst into tears at lunch, because there was just, something that I think was something about, sustainable fishing or something. And I know I feel the same way when the bushfires hit, for example, and I was driving down the road and I just saw the smoke in the distance, and I just burst into tears, because I felt like, what am I, how can I contribute and I feel overwhelmed, and I know that you feel this way sometimes. Sometimes I feel this sense of overwhelm because there are so many different world challenges that I would love to solve, and I can't solve them all. So what I often recommend too is to just pick one area that you're really passionate about for, for as a business owner, and go to this website, the Sustainable Development Goals, and you can see the different areas. There are 17 or 18 goals.
17.
17 goals.
You're saying 18 because EO created the 18th, which was EO number 18.
Oh, yeah, okay. So
well, we were going to collaborate to but 17 is partnerships for the goals.
Yeah, so you can go there for inspiration and just embrace one of the goals and go. For us here, we do a lot of ocean conservation, ocean sustainability, because that's what I'm also really passionate about. But there are so many, obviously, there's so many challenges that, I would love to solve them all, and I know you would love to. I think entrepreneurship is one of the best tools to go about solving challenges.
Yeah, I did. I had a little meltdown. I had to leave the lunch table and go and sit. It just impacted me so much. And I actually did a little video to myself crying to go, this is what I just learned. And I'm feeling totally overwhelmed because there are a lot of problems in the world, and it is overwhelming. And I don't think, and this comes back to the future of perfect knowledge. There's a lot of suffering in the world, and people talk about world hunger, but I've never seen a hungry person. Never.
Really?
Not you're like, really, I haven't had lunch.
No,
No,
but,
not like that, but like actual someone who is dying of starvation.
Yeah.
I have not seen anyone physically with my own eyes dying of starvation, and that would break my heart. And there was a picture that was taken and it won a lot of awards. This was 20 years ago. David Roberts talks about it, and the photographer took a picture and there was a little boy dying of starvation. There was this big hawk or eagle that was just waiting until he died. It was awful. And this picture won all these awards. And then someone asked the photographer what happened to the little boy. And he said, I didn't know. I don't know. He walked away. And he got so much negative press. He actually committed suicide. It was awful. But it's kind of like we haven't actually experienced it. It's like you see someone hungry and we waste over 30% of the world's food produced.
This is bring me to tears. I didn't think we were going to go this deep, but this is really important. This emotional, it's so important. And I agree on the food wastage. We just don't even think about it sometimes. And it's actually one of my pet peeves is when I see people waste food without thinking, because that's why they need to hear these messages too, because I just feel like we're so entitled sometimes. But that's a whole different other topic. But it definitely, this really impacts me.
And really, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you cry, but I think that's the part of we all want to make a difference. And most people in the world, if you ask them, do they want to make a difference? They say yes. And it's typically because they want to end suffering in the world today, make people happier for the population alive today, or make the world better and the environment so that it continues on in the world.
Yeah.
And I talk about all these different technologies, and I love and I geek out on technology, but it's actually enhancing the human experience. And if you think in 20 years' time, we'll probably look back and think about how primitive we were in 2020 and the things that we did and the things that we didn't know about. But imagine the data and the networks and the sensors. And so one of my favorites is planet.com. And planet.com are circulating 150 satellites per day that you can, or over 150, you can log in and you can develop on their platform down to a 75 centimeter resolution of the Earth. And so I had this conversation and I was like, oh, how many trees are there on the Earth? There used to be 7 trillion. We currently have 3 trillion. And now the global estimate was only updated from 2015 from 400 and something billion, which is, trillions in rounding error, because we didn't know how many trees we had on the planet. And then now there's these new businesses that are actually doing drones planting trees. And so they're dropping seeds. And so this is kind of, and if I can help prepare businesses to think about what technologies are coming, because it will impact your life, and we're going to have a future of perfect knowledge. And there's suffering, there's people that aren't happy, and there's a world that needs it. And so if you can align your business with solving one of those problems or one of the world's problems, then you don't have to create a new reason or products and services all the time, because you've got that 10-year goal of this is what I want to solve, or this is what I want to align with the SDGs.
Yeah, exactly. And this leads me to the last question, and then I'll take some of the attendees' questions. We have already one here, two comments, and you know, before I ask the question, just quickly, that is, you know, that is the good news about these technologies, that you can now exponentially, as you defined in the beginning, solve problems. It's not a linear problem solving anymore. Like this example you just shared now is an exponential way of solving a big challenge, which is exciting, right? So I'd love to ask you one last question before I have some questions here from the team, from the attendees, and that is, if you know, because you are a little bit of a, you know, if you're exposed to a lot of this stuff. So if you had a crystal ball, which you do kind of, what are you seeing in terms of, let's say in 20 years from now, the future of, let's say, shopping and food, entertainment, education, any of the sectors that you want to talk about, healthcare even? What's the future?
Yes, great. That's a lot of in one question. That's a really big. So my crystal ball. Wow. So people are going to be a lot more conscious, and we're all in the business of enhancing the human experience. And so anything we do is human centered. And I think shopping, as we've spoken about, people are going to be conscious about where did it come from, where did it go. I won't sing to you again.
Yes.
And the same with a lot of other industries. So I've got an Orcam, and this is my little future of perfect knowledge. This is a little camera that you can wear that actually tells me who I've been around. So it'll recommend
Daniel's business, right? In
the
business,
Orcam, me. So one of our friends invested in this business, and it was originally made for blind people, and it was sat on the side of your glasses, and it detected it read the menu to blind people. And now it just buzzes me on my iWatch and my phone and tells me when you're 20 meters away from me who's approaching. It's visual recognition and connects to social media. And I find that really interesting, only for a couple of things when we talk about this future. In the next 5-10 years in my crystal ball, you never have to remember anyone's name again. It's like Google Maps. You never have to read a map again, because you've got this augmented, where our humans are augmented with that technology. And so that kind of thing is going to exist. And then healthcare, hopefully, is healthcare, not sick care. And if you think about the challenges that we have in healthcare at the moment, where our great Aussie attitude of she'll be right, you don't feel really well, or you've got a bump or a lump, oh, she'll be right, it'll work itself out. And people don't go to the doctors, and they don't actually, you know, until something's really wrong, they go to sick care. And so I love this kind of thing, and I love the Aura Ring and things like that, because they're starting to give us this perfect knowledge of our body. And so, you know, potentially in 5-10 years, it'll tell us what we should be eating, our nutrients, that you should have some more green leafy vegetables or bananas, or it might actually say, hey, it's winter and seasonal fruits, oranges are really good for you in winter, and recommend that you have vitamin C. But the data that we'll have, and the sensors that we'll have, be able to help augment us to be our best selves. And I think that's the key thing that I have with all this technology is, how does it help me show up as my best self every day? And then how does it help me help the people around me show up as their best selves? And that's where we can all have the biggest difference. And another story that I love in Australia in particular is that we are very good at universal basic income and universal basic needs, of meeting the population's base needs. So we've got Medicare, we've got a free healthcare system, we've got income support for those who don't have a job, and the debate's out there if it's enough or not. But when COVID hit, our military were packing groceries. You know, that's pretty special. And so any of these businesses, and when we talk about going back to essential services, businesses will always have an opportunity where you're meeting people's base needs. And then you'll also have the opportunity, as you move up Maslow's hierarchy of needs as well, to be discretionary spending, but it's all going to be still human.
Yeah, and it's very, you know what, I found this very interesting. No, I'm totally for UBI, and I found with the job keepers now, that's sort of what we've been doing a little bit in this COVID world, is in fact we're actually testing this model. And yeah, I guess we'll see in a few months.
And the test is, how much is enough that you can afford to live, and not too much that you still want to work.
Yeah.
Or, is there enough purposeful things out there that even, when you've got spare time, people need purpose and they want purpose. So what can they contribute to, even during times of COVID? How can you actually go and volunteer and contribute and do something that gives you purpose and meaning in life? Because if you don't have that, then it's spiral dynamics can get a little bit too much in the negative spiral.
Yeah, so it's actually also, this is another conversation, but it will also be interesting to see how people are, if we do universal basic income, how people are motivated to find still a purpose, to have that knowledge that will actually help them stay healthy mentally also. Yeah,
it's interesting, and I'll relate it back to business there. Universal basic income from a macro level where everyone gets paid no matter what they need to achieve or do. And it's the same in business as well. How do you not get complacent and inefficient, where you need to actually you need to have revenue goals in a business, and how does each individual employee contribute to those revenue goals? And no matter what their role is, even if it's marketing, then they're still contributing to new sales and the funnel of a business. And so how do we actually have really good money psychology and tie in profit with purpose and actually reframe the entire purpose and mission and culture? Because the more money that you make is actually the bigger difference you can have. Yeah. So just there's couple of little shifts in psychology there.
Yeah, I love that. And we could talk about this forever, and we will talk about this forever when we catch up. I do have a question here and one comment here. Sue, hey Sue, it's so good to have you here. Sue is one of our members in the Clever Bunch, and Sue is saying, this is really cool. Coming from a maritime industry where there's a mindset to challenge the skipper, captain, we need to take that further as business owners to challenge all aspects of business, from compliance, government action, supply chain, and marketing. Yeah. Absolutely. And then the question here that I have, which is a really good question from Julia. And the question is, I love all your insights, so inspiring. What is your view on B Corp certification?
It's a great idea. And
so could you share what the B Corp is in case some of our listeners don't know what it is? And then, yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts actually on that, because we've been looking into that too.
Yeah, I probably won't do it too much justice saying what it is, but it's actually a certification that you meet a set of criteria in impact, so that your policies, your procedures, your business actually complies to be certified as an impact. Is it impact business, as as certified that you're doing the right thing? Did you say you're going through the process, or you're looking at it at the moment?
Yeah, we were looking into it. It's quite a process. So we're just thinking about getting either a consultant or doing it ourselves. You can do it yourself too.
I started filling in the form as well. So I think that's what is my view. It's worth it. And it's something that will probably, it'll give you the quality tick. It'll actually help with the transparency and the trust of your customers and your clients. I think we will get to a point in the next 5 years that it won't be optional. And you see this with the bigger clients as well. So once you get, even some of the larger corporates that I used to work with in the engineering business I had, was they expected we had to have ISO certification for quality, or they wouldn't do business with us. And we had to have a statement. So tenders and large corporates will start to expect it. And if you don't have it, you may not get that work in the future. And so if you start going through the process now, it's definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. And also with some certifications are not the B Corp one, but there are some certifications that are sort of like, yeah, they don't really make you have much change. But with B Corp, you actually do have to show, and you go through the process of being more sustainable. So that's the good thing about them. It's not just a tick. Some things are just like ticks. Yeah, I bought some trees and now I'm gonna keep wasting, polluting the environment. So it's not that. It's actually, you do go through all the ways to be more sustainable with your business.
Other things and technologies that I'm going to love in the future. So it won't be a manual process anymore. It'll be visual recognition. So imagine on your phone taking a photo of an apple that you're about to eat, and it will visually recognize that apple, and it will tell you the tree it was grown on and the process it's actually been on and how long it's been sitting in storage to get to your hand and into your mouth. And so when we talk about this future of perfect knowledge, you can actually now, another one I love, you can take a photo of a cake and the nanotechnology and the actual megapixels in your camera is able to determine the structure and the way that it was formed to create that cake and give you the recipe for it.
Oh, what really? But then that's maybe for some of the master chefs, that's a little bit of a shame. It's like, well, that's my secret recipe.
Well, it's just a molecular structure. They've actually got whiskey now that they've been able to 3D print and recreate the molecular structure to taste the same as 50-year-old whiskey.
That's so interesting.
Because it's just a molecular structure. So this, ability that we're going to have in with our phones is going to be important.
That I can see that coming. The same with the meat industry, how there's now some vegetarian food that is or meat that is grown in, not from an animal, but it's actually factory grown meat that tastes.
And so it's cellular biology. They're actually able to take the cells from a cow and then put it into a device that actually stretches it and makes it into muscle, but it's just stem cells essentially that creates a steak.
Yeah.
And
so the animals don't have to be suffering anymore in the little cages.
Yep. They're 3D printing organs, all sorts of things.
Yeah, exactly. I'll see if anyone else has a question here. So if anyone else would love to ask Lisa anything else on future technologies, innovations, anything you would love to ask, you can pop it now in the Q&A. And if not, then we're going to wrap up in the next few minutes. And while maybe if anyone wants to ask, you can do that right now. And if not, is there anything else that you would love to share, Lisa, that I didn't ask you?
Well, there's always so much that I'd love to share. For me, it's about, I think it's profit with purpose, but it's being purposeful. So strategic. One of the things I noticed quite significantly about business here in Australia versus Silicon Valley, so I lived in Silicon Valley for a lot of last year, was they actually design business models and they talk more about the business model instead of the business plan. And I love the formula in business. Like there's only one formula you need in business, and that's revenue less expenses equals profit. And you can only increase your revenue, decrease your costs, and count your profit. And so creating products and services that are going to make more money, make a bigger difference is huge for me. So creating products and services that you actually stand by, you're proud of, and you live by, and putting that into a business model that's going to impact as many people as you can is definitely the way forward.
I love that. That's such a good note to finish on. I love that perspective and that reframe on focusing on business model versus a business plan, because you can then always change the way that you go about achieving your big North Star, as we talked about earlier. And also the other thing I love that you just now mentioned is just be purposeful. Run a business that is purposeful. I love that. And we're getting a whole bunch of thank yous here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Incredible discussion. Enjoyed every bit. The future is now. Yes, John, it says, how far should I say take the process of alternate manufacturing of vinyl? I don't know if I understand that. Sorry, Stephen. John, can you elaborate? How far should I say take the process of alternate manufacture of vinyl?
Of vinyl. So I was talking about the carbon squares and vinyl. One of the things I love, so manufacturing and complete supply chains will change. And if you think about it now with the flights and the supply chains that are shifting, and even just the worldwide politics, we're seeing a lot more distribution and talk about local manufacturing. And one of my favorite things is around 3D printing. And so I believe in the next 10 years that we'll be 3D printing most things in our local areas of what we need. You can currently 3D print with over 250 materials. And so when we're looking at these materials, it's choosing the type of material. So like we were talking about Adidas, it's, what breaks down and then what comes back up again. So if you're talking about vinyl, I'm looking at substitute products that you are going to be able to have more access to in the future. And so 3D printing, I've got a little 3D version of myself, which is super funny. I went into this booth with all these cameras and it actually took a digital image of me and 3D printed me, which was super cool. And so I'm not sure, particularly in manufacturing and vinyl and what you meant there, John, but rethinking supply chains and where they might be in the next 5 to 10 years, and overlaying the convergence of different technologies that are going to exist, like 3D printing, like supply chain management through different materials, is going to be a good sort of risk mitigation plan to think into the future.
Yeah, I think you pretty much answered that question also, how to get access to more sustainable materials, which you pretty much just answered right now. And I'm getting a whole bunch of comments here. Great session. More, please. Thank you so much. Thank you all. And where can people find out more, or where can they connect with you? LinkedIn, Facebook,
LinkedIn is probably the best.
Where do you want them to hang out?
Yeah, you can check out a lot of all of our programs and workshops we run are on SingularityUAustralia.com on the website. But then LinkedIn, I typically share things that I'm doing and running a lot of different sessions, and hopefully people can join me in. I also go live every Friday morning on Facebook from 9 till 10 o'clock and talk about technologies of the future. So please check me out on Facebook as well.
Perfect. I love that. And we're getting a ton more thank yous here. You're beautiful humans, humanitarians, and visionaries. Thank you. Oh, that's so kind. This was so much fun, Lisa. I knew that I would love this. I've scribbled a whole bunch of drawings and notes here. And, you know, for me, it comes back again to this whole concept. And you talked about it with your impact formula of creating ripple effects, where you know, drop a little pebble and you impact yourself with these technologies, you know, become a better human and be optimized, you know, an optimized human, so that you can be your best version to impact your families, your communities, your state, your country, the whole world. And I love that I think it's about being purposeful and putting in the effort to be a good citizen. We're getting here one more mention. Peter says, thanks for getting us thinking of the next 10 years just as much as the next 5 days this week. Yeah, absolutely. And talking about the next 5 days, we've got a Clever Bunch group starting this Thursday. You all probably know, I've sent you a message today. So if you want to be a part of it, just email us. You can reply to the email. And otherwise, thank you all for joining me. And a huge thanks again to you, Lisa, and especially for all the work you're doing. I always love talking to you. It's always super.
Oh, thank you so much. Likewise.
I love what you do.
Very much appreciate being here. Thank you everyone else for your great questions.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks so much. And see you next time. See you in a week again, team. I believe we have maybe, I don't know what we have actually next week. You maybe check back on the PJ page, basicbananas.com/PJ. There we have the next dates already mentioned. Tristan is going to be also one of our guests. Tristan is a dear friend of both Lisa and I, and he's going to be amazing too. So thanks again. Thank you guys. I'm going to hang up now, and I love you guys being so purposeful. Bye.
Bye.
See you. Thanks for being so sleepy with me.
I'm like, do people use these things? Do they work?
Let's see if it works. I'm going to see if I can.